Hi, everybody. My name is Bob Spearing. I am MUFON's Director of International Development, and I'd like to welcome everybody here tonight. We're going to have a roundtable discussion about the movie Disclosure Day, which premiered this past Friday, Stephen Spielberg's latest and probably last science fiction dive. So we've assembled a panel to go through the movie, talk about what's great, what's not great, what was interesting, what was not known. And I think that you'll be in for a very, very intriguing discussion topic tonight. So I have a group of people who I know a long time. I'd like to introduce them. First would be Margie K. Margie K of the Unexplained Network. This is a joint MUFON Unexplained Network production tonight, and hopefully it goes well and we do this again over and over for different topics, hopefully. Margie K is also our Midwest Regional Director. She's a well-known author and podcaster, and she's our MUFON Assistant State Director in Missouri. I also have Greg Cisco. Greg Cisco is a MUFON State Section Director. He hosts the podcast Hall of Mirrors, which delves into the Leonard Stringfield files. He's also an astrophotographer, retired from the IT security team at Fermi Labs after 40 years. I also have Seth Feinstein. Seth Feinstein is a jack of all trades at MUFON. He's MUFON's Colorado State Director. He's also the head of our CMS coordinator team. That is the person who vets all of the reports that come into MUFON from around the world. He's also engaged in a lot of our special projects, including our new Andros system, which will be coming online this summer, a truly 21st century state-of-the-art database. His wife, Anniversary Feinstein, is also with us.
Hello.
Hi. So Anna, that you threw me off with the music there. Anniversary
Yes, my clock.
Anniversary is one of our CMS coordinators. She's also one of our regional directors in the United States, covering multiple states. So I think that we're ready to begin, unless I'm missing anybody here right now. Oh, of course. I'm sorry. Debbie Ziegelmeyer, our new interim executive director at MUFON. Sadly, our executive director, Dave McDonald, passed last week, and Debbie is now taking over the position, at least temporarily, until MUFON decides how it wants to move forward. And I also just want to mention that our MUFON Symposium is running through from August 27th through the 30th. It will be in the Northern Kentucky Convention Center in Covington, Kentucky, just a walk across the bridge from downtown Cincinnati. Truly beautiful place to have a convention. So everybody, before we start, I think a promotion video of what Disclosure Day was should be played, so that people who may not be so familiar with the movie will get a taste of what we're going to be talking about tonight. So anytime you want to begin showing the promo, go ahead.
Okay, hang on just 1 second, guys. Okay. Let me pull this up.
We're getting there.
Want to make sure that I get the right one.
Anyway, in the meantime, got it? I just want to say MUFON did a poll on our YouTube channel asking, if you've seen the movie, was it a yay or a nay? And interestingly enough, 47% of people said yay, 53%
and I was when I made
nay.
Close Encounters. To really believe that we're not the only intelligent civilization in the universe.
What did you steal?
Secrets. People have a right to know the truth.
This is a story about us. All of us.
Good morning, Kansas City.
Up against the most extraordinary event in human history.
what's happening to me. I'm frightened. I'm frightened out of my wits.
You don't need to be. You have someone else.
Daniel Kellner,
Who is this?
do not go back to the house. They found you. I don't know who you are, but they're gonna kill you.
The human race cannot accept what we know. We need to stop it any way we can.
What am I doing? What am I doing? What am I doing? What am I doing?
This 79-year cover-up of the truth has to end.
We're interrupting our coverage.
How will disclosure change us? I believe for the better. It will remind us of our capacity for empathy, and that there is something bigger out there than just ourselves. The only way to know your purpose is to go back to where it all began.
I know you.
I know you do. What happened to us?
I used to say to myself, wouldn't it be wonderful if all of this turned out to be true? I'm now thinking, wouldn't it be wonderful for people to know they're coming? All of this is true. Disclosure Day.
Okay, so just so the audience knows, and if there may be some spoiler alerts here tonight, so if you haven't seen the movie yet, you may want to cover your ears at certain points if you think we're getting close to a spoiler. But one thing I will tell the audience is that if you're expecting UFOs to be landing on the White House lawn, this is not your type of movie. This movie turns out to be more about the experiencers and what has happened to them and how that connects to possible disclosure. So I just want to start off the conversation, and then anybody who wants to can pick it up from there. The antagonist in the movie is Colin Firth. And Colin Firth, as far as I'm concerned, is one of the greatest actors of our generation, and I think he was just absolutely perfect for the part. And it seems that his character is based on billionaire Robert Bigelow of Bigelow Aerospace, who's had a lifelong fascination with UFOs and who has a warehouse in northern Las Vegas that may or may not contain actual, say, UFOs or UFO crash debris or even non-human biologics. So I was just fascinated by the fact that there is a Robert Bigelow type character in the movie. Anybody want to take it from here? Thoughts? If not, I'll pick somebody.
I'll go ahead and say something.
Okay.
I agree. It is basically a movie that is directed toward the contactee and the contactee experience. I am on the Experiencer Resource team, but I also had a conscious experience in Izmir, Turkey back in 1981. And since that time, I've been studying the contact part of it, trying to figure things out. And I think that a lot of what was shared was very accurate as far as from the contactee's perspective. I think that Spielberg definitely did his homework. It struck me emotionally at certain points because I could totally relate. I thought it was an excellent, excellent movie. Most people don't, consciously anyway, think that they've had contact or that they can't really relate to that part of it. And so I can't speak for that side of the house, but I can definitely speak for the experiencer side.
Okay. Another.
I loved it. I loved it.
Another aspect of the movie, besides the experiencer angle, was there seemed to be a bit of remote viewing in it. Margie, did you pick up on that fact? You would be the expert on that.
I couldn't miss it. There were a lot of correlations to, well, my personal experiences as an ET experiencer and remote viewing. And this, the lead character's contact with an ET who gave her basically the skill of remote viewing really hit home with me. And I think that sort of thing does happen to people. They either receive a healing in some fashion or an extra skill of some type. And this is pretty common among people who are experiencers. And I think anybody who has had an experience like that, or even questions maybe something strange happened to them and they don't remember all the details, but they suspect it, I think this movie might actually help them remember what happened.
Yeah, the remote viewing thing was very interesting to me also, because it seemed that when the Colin Firth character tried to do remote viewing, he needed the alien artifact. But Emily Blunt, simply by her contact with what appears to be a masked memory of an animal, is able to gain that ability naturally. Did you notice that the Bigelow character needed the artifact, and
we discussed that after. I mean, 8 of us went together from a Kansas City MUFON, and my husband is sitting right next to me, and actually everybody there turned to me after the movie and said, that movie was about you. And there are so many coincidental things about it. My name is Margaret. Her name was Margaret. Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
There was a Pearl Street address. My office is on Pearl Street. I can tell you about 6 or 7 things, and it's just kind of freaky. I've got people who are calling me all the time in the last 24 hours about that. But and I also noticed they used bilocation, and that is something else that I have experienced as well. They really let everybody know, Spielberg let everybody know, there's so much more to this, and that the ETs are giving us skills to use, and that everybody has those abilities. All they need to do is learn how to use them, get a little practice, and realize that they have the abilities, because everybody has the same physiology.
I'm curious, why do you think the movie was set in the Midwest? Any ideas, Debbie, Margie? Is there something special about the Kansas City or St. Louis areas that
Kansas City is a UFO hotspot?
Okay.
I mean, it's a major UFO hotspot. There's a lot going on here. It has been for a long time. Wouldn't you agree, Debbie?
Yes, I would agree. And I had a very unique perspective. With my adult son, we had a pre-showing on Monday with the press. So we were sitting among probably 200 people from the press. We were in the front row with all them behind us. Every time they would have a segment where they were doing remote viewing, a lot of them were laughing. And we turn around and look at them, and I looked at my son and I said, they don't know much about the subject. They thought it was comical, and it just shocked me, because in our realm, we know about remote viewing. Anybody who is involved in any way, shape, or form in ufology knows about remote viewing. Yet these reporters were laughing that they didn't believe it. I was just surprised at the reaction.
Yeah, it's sort of sad. I think that we've come a long way, and that we're no longer considered tinfoil hat conspiracists, but there still is an element among the press that refuses to take this seriously. Although I do think at this particular time in UFO history that the government and some media organizations may be working together the way propaganda was put out during World War II. So is it really disclosure? Is it fake disclosure? Are we taught to look this way because something else is going on? And with so many different theories out now as to whether they're time travelers, ultra-terrestrials, interdimensionals, it seems that Spielberg still clings to that extraterrestrial theory. Okay, so at this point, I wanted to ask Greg a question. Greg is basically MUFON's unofficial historian, has delved deeply into the 12,000 pages of the Leonard Stringfield files. And a lot of what's in the movie, Greg has come across before, including just last week. Greg had a Hall of Mirrors podcast about Jackie Gleason being taken to see dead alien bodies at Homestead Air Force Base. And that actually makes it into the movie. And Greg, I was just wondering, a lot of what was in the movie, you've seen this before from a certain crash retrieval expert's writings as far back as the 1970s. What's going on here? Where did Spielberg get his stuff from?
Well, this stuff he probably got from whistleblowers. A lot of people, refer to Close Encounters of the Third Kind as his big blockbuster movie that, they're trying to compare Disclosure Day to. And what people probably don't realize is Spielberg always said that Close Encounters was written around the ending of that movie. And the ending of the movie is essentially 3 UFOs landing at Holloman Air Force Base and entities coming out of the UFO and interacting with soldiers. And where he got that idea from was Robert Emenegger in the 1970s, who produced a movie called UFOs Past, Present, and Future, which you can find on YouTube for free. And Robert Emenegger was hired to create that documentary from the Nixon administration, apparently for his re-election campaign or something along those lines, with the guarantee that if Robert Emenegger would create this documentary, the Department of Defense would provide him with the film that has been rumored for decades of UFO landing at Holloman Air Force Base. So Robert Emenegger creates the documentary, and the Department of Defense reneges, as you would expect. And Steven Spielberg basically wrote a whole movie around that whole idea. So at the time, according to the Leonard Stringfield literature that I've read, everybody expected disclosure like we're expecting today. They expected that in the late 1970s. And then when Close Encounters comes out, that, well, for sure, the truth, quotes, the truth is going to come out. And it just didn't. It went back into the black hole that the truth has always been in. So now, 50 years later, the truth is starting to percolate out again. It seems like Steven Spielberg does have sources that is getting a lot of things right. Like you're talking about the remote viewing. The Jackie Gleason story was sort of right, but the whole idea was the main thing here. The difference 50 years later today is that you have many congressmen, the Congress is interested now, where they never were really all that interested in the late 1970s. But so there's this repeat that, I think we have to be mindful that the whole thing could collapse back into the black hole from where it seems like it came from if the disclosure doesn't happen. For sure, it seems like there is some party in the government that really still does not want the information out, even though we're getting in the 3 document releases that Department of War has released. Many of those documents have already been out before, so they're not really telling us anything new. So, but they're buying time, sort of, as it were.
And a lot of the documents that were, at least in the first release, some of them were known hoaxes. All right.
Yeah.
So there was an April Fool's edition of a German magazine of what looked like two Nazi SS officers in long coats holding the hands of a small alien in the first trench. And that's a known April Fool's Day joke from a German magazine.
And if it's for real, you definitely want the word out there that it's a hoax.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
I don't know it's a hoax. I know that they're saying it's a hoax and ha, 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 ha. But a lot of things that they said were hoaxes or didn't exist in the 50s, in fact, actually did exist. There's a famous interview on YouTube from Donald Kehoe and Mike Wallace, where they're talking about Special Report 14, Project Blue Book Report 14. They're talking about the estimate of the situation. They're talking about the Twining memo where General Twining basically admits that there's something to the UFO topic, and that's what brings about Project Sign. Also, if you pay close attention, at one point in Disclosure Day, one of the people that worked for Colin Firth that didn't come into work, the guy's name was Nathan Twining.
A little Easter egg. About a general a long time ago. Yeah, and the other interesting thing we were all talking about right before the show started is that when Nixon took Jackie Gleason to see the dead bodies, that was probably the start of the need to know for presidents of the United States.
So one of my military contacts, which I guess I do have, he insists that after Richard Nixon brought Jackie Gleason in to see the aliens, and the aliens Jackie Gleason saw were 2 feet tall and had gigantic ears, which is not what they portrayed in the movie, but I think we pass on that. But they were like the Hopkinsville aliens, is kind of like what Jackie Gleason saw. But basically after that, the people in the legacy program were so upset that they changed the procedures whereby the president would be read into the reality of UFOs. And you always heard that Jimmy Carter did not really get access. And Jimmy Carter was a guy right after Nixon, sort of, there was Ford in between there. But it's because of presidents being temporary employees of the government that now they don't have a need to know. And that's actually at the back end, at the very end of this video that I released, which is on MUFON's YouTube channel, about Jackie Gleason and Richard Nixon. It's the real story. I didn't know where that story originated from, but from reading one of Leonard Stringfield's diaries, wouldn't you know it, it came from the National Enquirer. And Leonard Stringfield even wrote a letter to Jackie Gleason to try to get more information, but he never got a reply. And that letter is actually shown in the video. So people are interested in the Jackie Gleason story. I think that would basically tell everything that I know about it. And the one person that Jackie Gleason confirmed his story with. He wouldn't really tell anybody else, but he did tell this one UFO researcher in the 1980s before Jackie Gleason passed away.
Very interesting. All right, let me take a change of direction. Seth, you said this movie brought tears to your eyes, okay? And we were also talking about, there's one part, and I don't want to give it all away, where there's a recreation or a memory retrieve of an actual abduction of children. And to me, that was the most beautiful part of the movie. I thought it was perfectly done. When you saw that, how did you feel?
Well, having had experiences myself, the movie was emotional at certain times. And we spoke to a contactee who's part of a group that went and saw the movie themselves in California this morning. Mm-hmm. And they said they were all crying through over and over again through the movie. I think it brings up emotions.
It does.
You begin to think about the experience you had yourself, and you review and you start to evaluate yourself and maybe Well, did I receive any gifts from any of my experiences? I think that the movie itself is going to encourage more and more people who have had experiences to make sighting reports with MUFON at MUFON.com. Let me give a few statistics. We had our Colorado MUFON Speaker Day yesterday. We had 75 people in our auditorium yesterday, and it was Saturday, 2 days after the movie came out. I said, how many of you have seen Disclosure Day yet? And about 50 of the people, 2/3 of the audience, had already seen the movie. So the movie, although it is based on factual events, is very important to the UFO community.
Okay, we're just about ready for the break, Seth. So I'm going to come back to you when we go to break. Okay.
All right.
But I know exactly the feelings, because right now I think some of these experiences have waited decades to report what happened to them. Some children, and that's a critical point in the movie, that sometimes children seem to have a special interest with the ETs. The ETs have special interest in children, and they don't remember some of these things for decades. And I think now that this movie's out, MUFON may actually see a rash of UFO reports submitted by experiencers looking for direction. And we have our own experiencer resource team that does offer resources to people who may have had traumatic incidents in their life. So okay. Debbie, do you want to jump in and mention anything prior to the break?
About the movie, it was interesting about the children, what you were just saying about children, because people file MUFON cases, daily, sometimes hourly. But when I have somebody, when I do a conference, I speak at a conference, and I have people that come up to me, they're always older gentlemen or older ladies that come up, and they always tell me about their experience. And it's always when they were a child, and they have incredible details. So I mean, it's very believable, because how they can remember that many years later, people that are in their 70s and their 80s. One gentleman was 93, and they remember in detail. And these things happen to them anywhere between the age of 7 years old and 12 years old. And so that kind of hit home for me when the two of them, they could remember back as children. And I thought, oh my gosh, how many people? And I imagine, as Seth was saying, there's going to be a lot of people in the audience that they're going to remember. That's going to be a flashback, and they're going to remember their experience.
Absolutely. And I think that's a perfect segue for us to take a break here, and we'll be back in a couple of minutes.
Join us in Cincinnati, August the 27th through the 30th for one of the premier UFO conferences in the United States. The MUFON Symposium 2026, UFO Revelations, Impact on Society and Science. This year's event features keynote speakers Alex Dietrich and the intrepid Peter Robbins, along with 8 additional investigators, researchers, and authors presenting the latest developments in UFO research and disclosure. Master of Ceremonies Stacy Wright will guide attendees through 4 unforgettable days of presentations, discussions, vendors, and special events. Register today at MUFONSymposium.com. That's MUFONSymposium.com.
Patriarch's oxygen water addresses a condition called hypoxia, which is insufficient oxygen in the cells and tissues. The fact is that hypoxia triggers 90% of all chronic conditions, including circulation issues, low oxygen levels in the blood, and more. By drinking Patriarch's oxygen water, you can restore oxygen levels in the body, restore energy, reduce age spots, and renew stem cells. Now, as an Unex listener, you can get 10% off of Patriarch's ultra-high oxygen content water at patriarchs.us/discount/UnexNews, or check the shop page at Unex Network for more information.
Welcome back. So Margie, I wanted to ask you a question. You, like Seth, are an experiencer lifelong, and I'll ask Seth the same question too. But did you ever have missing memories or screen memories similar to in the movie? In the movie, there's one scene where, because it's traumatic for children, there's what are called mask memories, where they're not actually seeing what's going on. So I'm curious, in your experiences, were they emotional? Did you experience any missing time, mask memories, lapses in memory till it suddenly popped back into your head 40 years later? Anything like that?
All of the above has happened. And what I saw as a child and as an adult was owls. And I saw, and that's pretty common. That's probably the most common creature that's seen. But about 20 years ago, I had my second sighting of an extraterrestrial standing in my bedroom. But what had happened was I had asked for assistance because I'd had a health problem, and the doctor couldn't fix it. My feet hurt so bad I couldn't walk. And I just said, well, I meditated. I said, if there are any benevolent beings out there who can help me. I didn't clarify that by who benevolent beings were, who they might be. And I went to sleep. And then I was awakened by this sharp pinch in my calf, like a needle going into the bone. And I open my eyes and I see two gray ETs, each about 4 feet tall, working right over my feet. And that was a shock to me. And I screamed. I screamed through the covers over my head. I'm like, what am I doing? I asked them to come help, pull the covers down, and I couldn't see them, but they were still there. I figured out later it was my level of consciousness. I had thrown myself into a fear level, and that takes you right out. But I had been asleep, and anyway, I figured all of that out. But that was my first experience. And after that, each experience that I had with seeing extraterrestrials after that got easier and easier, to where now, if one comes next to me, I'm fine. I'm not afraid anymore.
Okay, I'm going to ask Anniversary and Seth the same thing. In your experiences, missing time, lost memories for decades, Anniversary?
Yes. Yes. In fact, recently, when Sev Talk was here visiting, we had missing time that Sev and I both absolutely knew what had happened because there was a clock involved. And I could go into depth on it, but it would take too long. I'm a generational contactee, and it's, it affects your whole life. And you do walk away with extra abilities, whether it's being a sensitive, a medium, a remote viewer, an intense empath. There's all that stuff.
Mathematical genius, right?
Oh my God. There are so many things that go along with it, which makes me wonder if when human beings are taken by some of these non-human intelligences, if they aren't trying to help us in some way through manipulating our DNA. And you do get to a point, just like Margie said, where you're not afraid anymore, because enough has happened where you're aware of it, but your reaction is not extreme. When you first start out, you're terrified because we're not taught that this kind of thing ever happens. but you get beyond that. Seth, you want to say something about it?
Well,
We've had missing time together too. Seth and I out on the road. It's not something that just happens once.
Mm-hmm.
well,
It
I'd like
happens a
to know.
lot.
I'd like to know how we got from the contactee era to the experiencer era. So the days of the contactees with the Space Brothers, people were having all these positive experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Now, most of the experiencers that we get today, they're having um, missing time because they don't remember what happened to them. They've been taken for an hour or two, and all they remember is a traumatic event that took place for maybe 15 or 30 seconds uh, from their experience. So what the heck happened the rest of
Hey,
the
hey, hey, Seth, could you pull your mic away? It's a little muffled.
Okay.
Now you're clear.
Okay. So what happened? What happened the rest of the time? How come we don't remember that? Why is our memory screen? My intent or belief is that these contacts are not for the benefit of the people being contacted. These contacts are for the benefit of those doing the contact. But I would like to share a statistic as CMS coordinator team lead. We're getting 33% of the cases we take in every day include somebody who's seen an entity, has missing time, or was abducted. 33%. And we have a database of 148,000 cases that we've been doing since 1969. So if 33% of the cases we're taking in now are people who have had some type of contact, what does that tell you? How many people on this planet are having a contact?
Absolutely, Seth. That's a good point because as little as 2 years ago, we did a survey, and about 17% of all reports that came in monthly to MUFON had an experiencer questionnaire attached to them. And now you're saying 33%. That's double.
Right.
That's astonishing.
And we're the only organization in the world that will support and investigate these cases.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Doing the Air Force's business since 1969, they always say. So Debbie, like if we take this another step further, it's interesting. I remember the late great Earl Grey Anderson summoned beings, and he regretted it. Okay, whereas Anniversary summoned beings to help her, and it was a pleasing experience. And what's very interesting about the MUFON CMS is that we did a study of 2 questions in the experiencer questionnaire. When people report that they had an experience, we asked them to fill out 25 questions. One of them is, were you injured during the experience, or were you healed during the experience? 3,000 people answered each question. About 33% in each category, to within one, said they either had a positive or a negative experience. So it almost seems like we're dealing with at least 2 different entities, civilizations, or whatever. What's your feelings on if this is a positive or negative thing that's going on right now? The movie was sort of a positive experience overall.
I think the movie was a positive experience overall, but just the government files that are being released and the age of disclosure that the movie that got released enhanced the movie, because a lot of what was in that government released movie, as well as the files that are being released, the video that are being released, it's making the movie a lot, well, to people, I guess, a lot more believable. The one thing that I took from it was that some of the videos that they did release, I thought were very interesting at the very end. And the fact that it seems like the feedback we're getting in on this podcast is all positive. So I don't know. I think we have the good. I think the best is yet to come.
Okay. I'm glad that you brought up the videos at the end. Greg, you had mentioned to me last week that possibly Spielberg had inserted actual videos that he may have received from the government. Did I understand you correctly? Because when I was looking at some of what they were posting at the end, it was clearly theatrical, like the Roswell Chris. I doubt that that's real footage from Roswell. But did you hear different on some of these things? Did you recognize anything?
A lot of the aliens were not like what I would expect from reading up on it. They had thumbs, for example. So if you're nitpicking little things about the film, the aliens that were depicted should remove the thumbs. But I think what I mentioned to you, and maybe it was a misunderstanding, was the videos that Spielberg had, like of the Roswell crash and whatever, kind of look like what you would expect the actual videos would look like if they were to come out. That I was struck with. They needed a better Jackie Gleason character, though, or they could have used AI maybe on that, because I knew it was Jackie Gleason, but yeah. No, I don't think I have any information that Steven Spielberg had an actual video clip that he put in from the government. That's Jeremy Corbell that has that stuff.
Yes, and Jeremy Corbell, I'm still waiting for the rest of the Iraqi jellyfish video to come out, hopefully someday.
However, you mentioned the videos. Since I was there with the press, that was the one thing that they gasped at the very end. And I heard some of the press talking about it, and they did wonder. They said that would be Spielberg if he could get a hold of anything that was real and maybe slip in just a fraction, a little bit. And that was what was intriguing, because they were wondering, they wanted to do research, and they were wondering, was there something in there real?
No.
And so that was the one thing the press did take from that, maybe.
Close Encounters was based on that legendary video clip from the Alamogordo landing. So
exactly.
That's probably where that notion gets some legs. And now when this movie comes out, they're wondering, well, he did it before, maybe he can do it again. Because he had way too much information on Close Encounters. He had everything pretty much nailed down. And I would say the same is pretty much true for this movie, Disclosure Day. It's exactly what everybody who's been paying attention to the UFO topic expects. I give the movie a 9 out of 10 because it had everything that I expected. And I come home and I'm looking on YouTube at all the reviews, and I don't think I saw one positive review on it, because everyone was disappointed, I think, because they didn't understand it. They went there hoping for a popcorn movie with lasers and lightsabers and stuff. And instead they got remote viewing with the thing that they were holding to Philip Corso, I think, called that a headband transceiver that you use to interface with the stuff. Jake Barber had said that they had some device that they used to call the UFOs. So it seems like there is this notion of some technological assistance to help with that. Lou Elizondo, in his book Eminent, was talking about remote viewing some terrorist in the Middle East, and he found out later that this individual saw a white entity in his room during the exact time that they were remote viewing the guy. So there is this notion about the projection of Colin Firth in the rooms of the people that he was trying to connect to by remote viewing. There is that notion out there, I think, from what Lou had been talking about. And who knows what MK Ultra and Project Stargate was really able to do. When you hear stories in the past where men in black show up and they knock on a door and they said, "We want your crash debris," and it's like, how do these people even know that I have crash debris? Well, they're probably remote viewing it.
We had a MUFON case several years ago where it was the son of one of the MPs in McGuire Fort Dix, when there was the George Filer incident where they shot an alien allegedly dead on the tarmac, and his father had taken photographs and he had them in a little red box. never told anybody. And one day they got a knock at the door. His mother answered, and it was two men in black saying, "We'd like the red box."
Yeah.
How would they know that?
Remote viewing.
Remote viewing.
Yeah, it has to be.
Another interesting thing was they show like footage of Kecksburg, not real footage, but for the plot. But there are aliens retrieved from Kecksburg, and that's a new angle I had never seen before. They used to think it was an acorn-shaped object, possibly Russian satellite debris. Has anybody ever heard anything about actual crew members in the Kecksburg incident? Because I'm thinking maybe Spielberg just threw us another Easter egg there, something to go down the rabbit hole with.
I will check that, but Stringfield had a whole crash retrieval status report where a good part of it was based on the Kecksburg crash and a very detailed investigation. I don't remember that part. I don't remember the entities, but could be wrong. I've read a lot of documents in the last couple of years. Sometimes I don't even know what I read, but I'll double check on that because that is a good point. But I don't. So I had always thought that the Kecksburg craft was the Die Glocke, that the Nazi the bell that was missing. All of a sudden, it shows up in Pennsylvania 10 years later, and it was sort of the same shape.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, acorn shaped. So, okay, we have about 10 minutes left. Everybody here saw the movie. Some of us here, not me, are experiencers. So overall, let's start with Margie, then Greg, Seth, Debbie, Anniversary. We'll wrap up. Margie, give us your overall view of the movie. How real? Is it worth seeing? What did you think? Compared to Close Encounters, what do you got?
Well, for me, this is the pinnacle of Spielberg's movies. And I believe that this is going to hit a lot of people, make a lot of people more aware. Even if they are not experiencers, they're going to realize that this is real. And after all, in the trailer, Spielberg says this is real. And he means it. And I think that he had a reason for putting this movie out, a very deep reason. I think he knows more than he talks about publicly. And then for experiencers, it's something that's validating, and it's also going to make experiencers think about things that have happened to them, and they're going to want answers. And so they're going to contact MUFON.
Absolutely. I really think that if somebody has had an experience in their life, multiple experiences, or even if experiences that run in the family, this is the movie for them to get not closure, but an idea of what it's really like to be an experiencer, that they're not alone, that there's plenty of other people out there like them. Greg, 2 minutes.
Okay, so I've watched a lot of Stephen Spielberg interviews over the last week or so, and the one thing that struck me is he said that he wrote this movie, the story that the movie is based on, starting in 2023 after David Grush came out. And he said something that I've sort of been joking with a lot of my friends about, there is actually people that ask me what I think about it. There's overwhelming circumstantial evidence about the reality of the phenomenon. And we're basically waiting for the government to tell us that yes, everything exists, basically what we already know. And that is literally what Steven Spielberg said was the reason why he created this movie and why he believes it to the extent that he believes it, and how real life caught up with his movie, which was in production for a couple of years, right? So here, real life, he says, caught up to his movie.
Yeah, what's interesting though, when he did Close Encounters, Jacques Vallée was the person giving him, technical information about what's real, what should be in it. And Vallée tried to explain to Spielberg that it may not be aliens at all. It may be something much, much weirder. Okay. And there's a lot of that going on right now with interdimensional theories, ultra-terrestrial theories. And Spielberg said, well, the public wants aliens. And that's his thinking for Close Encounters. It seems that like 40 years later, that's still his thinking. He hasn't diverged and considered any other theories. Anyway, we're almost at time. So Seth, I want to get you, Debbie, and Anniversary. And Seth, closing thoughts.
Okay. The film was brilliant. The cinematography, the story, the sound was like no other movie I ever heard. I mean, my favorite two parts of the movie are when Colin put the mouthpiece in his mouth, and you could hear the sound of the mouthpiece going into his mouth as he bit down on it. My
Mhm.
second favorite part of the movie was when the woman was walking through the snow, and you could hear her feet wisping through the snow as she walked. I mean, it was just absolutely amazing. But every film requires closure, and this film ended with listen. The listen is the final word spoken
Mhm.
in the
Mhm.
movie. So, what the public wants as disclosure, we want to see spacecrafts, we want to see aliens, we want to see technology, we want to see all that. But what happened in this movie is the movie stated the mystery is not primarily technological. This is, as you just said, the Jacques Vallée concept that the phenomenon involves consciousness, it involves psychology, perception, and it's cultural. It's not, and that's the way Spielberg went at the end of the movie.
And it is interesting because what's the big theme in ufology and physics right now is consciousness. What is consciousness? Where does it come from? From the quantum level, quantum mechanical level, or outside of us, or is it in our brains connecting somehow? So that's the research that's going on all over the world right now, and I really think that data centers may have something to do with that because everybody seems to be in a rush to build data centers to compute something on a massive scale.
Well,
Very
I'm going
interesting.
to go back to the movie again.
Okay. Debbie Z, what do you think?
I'll be brief. Close Encounters of the Third Kind was a form of disclosure, what people were ready to hear at that time. A disclosure day is another form. It's a step higher up, another form of disclosure, and that's what people are ready for now, and that's what we really need to know now because it's coming close. And this was an introduction, I believe.
Okay. Anniversary.
Yeah, I think it's a step along the way. I agree with everybody who's given input. There was an interesting part in the movie where Margaret talked about not remembering before she was like 10 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the same way. I have no memories. And I used to think everybody had no memories until people started talking to me about when they were in the crib and everything else. But I think that there are people out there that have had contact that have no conscious awareness of the fact that they have had contact. I think there are many of them. And I think that this movie will trigger a lot of people. But also, it's important to note that in this movie, they depicted one type of non human intelligence. There are many. And so, the storyline itself with just two people, if you multiply that by a lot of people and you throw in additional non-human intelligences, it is an outstanding movie. And I think that people who have not had or don't believe they've ever had contact and have friends who have maybe talked about it, it'll give them a better understanding of those other people and maybe draw us closer together. But I think it was excellent.
Okay. We still have a couple of minutes. The scene where the little girl gets out of bed, starts walking in the snow to the glowing windows in the house. That is a masked memory. That is actually some sort of craft, but for the girl's mind, it's in the shape of a house with glowing windows. This is a motif that has existed since at least the Middle Ages. Some people were actually burned at the stake as witches for claiming that they went to a massive mansion in the sky. So I think that's very interesting, the minutia that Spielberg went into, all right, to try to make it as realistic as possible what a person experiences, okay, the masked memories of the animals, the masked memory of the mansion, of suddenly appearing in the room, the bedroom, and then suddenly you're on that silver table and the machine is coming down. In many of the MUFON cases, it's a giant eyeball shaped scanner that scans the person's body. And the other thing is the children. Okay, many times it's children recollecting 40 years later. And interestingly enough, and Spielberg got this right too, there were two children. And oftentimes a witness will tell us, yes, I was a child at the time, and there was another table next to me, and there was another child on that table. So I think Spielberg got the facts right for this movie. Absolutely sure. I think there was one too many car chases, but other than that, I thought it was a good movie. So I'd like to thank all of you for coming tonight. I'd like to remind people the MUFON Symposium is August 27th through the 30th in just outside Cincinnati, Ohio. We are a free, open, grassroots organization. We are not beholden to any government entity or private corporation. Not only do we take your reports for our 145,000 case database, but we investigate them, and we actually have an experiencer resource team that gets involved in certain cases. MUFON is the place to keep ufology open and free. With that, I'd like to thank Margie, Greg, Seth, Debbie, Anniversary, and I hope to see you guys all again. Thank you for this joint MUFON Unexplained Network production, and we'll see you next time.